Now is not the time to build a new gaming PC, but I'm going to tell you when you'll want to buy right now. Hey, what's going on YouTube? I'm Danny with Danny's Tech Channel. In case you didn't know, Computex is one of the biggest electronics conventions in the world, and it happens once a year. Well, this year it's digital because of, COVID, but they released all the information from the big three companies such as Intel, AMD, and Nvidia. And they all released information about their new and upcoming products. Well, I'm gonna talk about them today, and that may change your direction on when you wanna buy. First, let's talk about the current CPU offerings from both Intel and AMD. I just wanna give you an idea of what's out there. Every company is making good stuff right now. Actually, Intel didn't make too bad of stuff in the last generation, but I would not recommend the 11th gen for anything Intel. They're overpriced and they're underperforming. If you want to buy Intel, if you're really dead set on Intel, buy something 10th gen. You can actually get a better price than you can for the new stuff, and you're getting the same, if not better performance in workload stuff. Take example, the two that I mentioned here. For the 10th gen processors, you've got the Intel i9-10850K. It's a 10 core 20 thread processor, and it actually is on sale right now for $400, $399 USD. I don't know what it is in every country, but that's a great price for a 10 core 20 thread chip. And if you've already got an LGA 1200 socket motherboard, it'll just slot right in. Another good processor that they sell if you want to go a little bit more on the budget end is the 10600K. I actually have that here in the studio, and I've used it on a couple builds already if you want to check those out. Let's talk about AMD real quick. AMD's current offerings, their, flagship processors, as you could say, is the 5900X. These are Ryzen 9s, the 5900X and the 5950X. These are a 12 core 24 thread and a 16 core 32 thread. Now that I say it out loud, it's actually a crazy amount of cores for really anyone in the mainstream usage category like gaming or even basic workload performance. But the Ryzen 9 5900X and actually the 5950X are really not in stock that often. What I would recommend if you really want to get something that's Ryzen 5000 series, which is their newest offering as I'm saying here, go with the 5600X. It's a Ryzen 5 5600X. I've used it in numerous builds already. It does great for gaming performance, and it can do some workload stuff as well because it's got 6 cores, 12 threads, and it boosts to 4.6 gigahertz. Or if you want something with a little bit more cores, I would not recommend the 5800X because of the price, but I would recommend the 3700X. That's an 8-core 16-thread chip, and it boosts to 4.4 gigahertz. So you're really not losing a whole lot of performance if you want to use them for some kind of productivity or something like that. And the best thing about the AMD stuff right now is it slots into any AM4 motherboard with a BIOS update. So if you have an older B450 or X470 motherboard or something like that, you can slot them in and give yourself a little upgrade until you hold off for the next stuff coming down the road. Actually, now that I think about it, just forget all these. Let's move them aside and let's just talk about what's upcoming and what's new. As I said, Computex has been happening recently. Actually, this week it's going on. And Intel, AMD, and Nvidia all had keynote speeches already where they revealed new products that they're most excited about. Well, the biggest disappointment is Intel. In the keynote speech, the most things they were addressing is mobile CPUs, mobile gaming, their integrated graphics for their XE graphics. They were talking about a lot of things that were not relevant to gaming desktop, which is what I'm sure most of you are on the channel to look at. Now, I do know the information that I was able to gather on this. They didn't necessarily release it at Computex, but they did have a small slide talking about this. Intel's next upcommy thing is labeled Alder Lake. Alder Lake is going to be based on the LGA 1700 socket. This is another new chipset, very typical for Intel. You usually only get 2 generations out of them. Right now it's LGA 1200, and you were able to get the 10th gen stuff and the 11th gen stuff that's currently out of the 1200 socket. Now they're moving on to the 1700 socket. Now, the biggest thing that's really important to all the Intel fans and really should be important to everyone when it comes to gaming and computer use and stuff is that Intel is jumping from their 14 nanometer process, which is everything they've made over the past 6 years or more, and they're switching over to 10 nanometer. 10 nanometer is going to give them a tremendous jump, I believe, because look at the jump that AMD got going from 14 to 7 nanometer. Intel also teased that they're going to be using PCIe 5.0 and DDR5 and DDR4 is going to be supported, which is faster memory, faster bandwidth as far as graphics cards go. It's really just going to open up the stadium, I guess you could say, for more advancements to come as far as all the other companies go for the computing platform. Now, these processors are not slated to release until the end of 2021, maybe even early 2022. Intel said in their press release at Computex that Alder Lake will be coming to desktop at the end of 2021, so we'll just see how close that is to the mark when it actually happens. The second thing to release at Computex is AMD. AMD didn't release the information about their new CPUs that are going to be upcoming, the Zen 4 or Zen 3 Plus, whatever you want to call it. But that is going to be on an LGA 1718 chipset. It's going to be a new chipset from AMD. They've been riding out that AM4 for a long time. Now, AMD said they're only going to be supporting PCI 4.0, but they did say they're going to be producing motherboards that do DDR5. They didn't say anything about DDR4 support so far. Now, disclaimer, this is all just rumors. This was not released at Computex, so this is just what I've been gathering so far. Take it with a grain of salt. I really don't know the exact specifications of what AMD is going to be releasing. Now, what I do know for a fact that was released at Computex is AMD is coming out with APUs for Ryzen 5000 series. If you weren't already aware, AMD's APUs are their integrated graphics built into the CPU. The only thing they offer currently, the most recent APU that AMD has come out with is the Ryzen 3 3200G and the Ryzen 5 3400G. Those are really dated now. They actually run on the last generation's cores, so it's actually Ryzen 2000 series CPU cores, but they came out during Ryzen 3000 series CPUs. It's kind of a weird complication of it, but what we did find out at Computex is the Ryzen 5000 series APUs, which they're going to be releasing a Ryzen 5 5600G, which is 6 cores and 12 threads for $259, and a Ryzen 7 5700G, which is 8 cores, 16 threads, and is going to come in at $359. These are USD prices. Both CPUs release on August 5th of this year. But the good thing that I'm really excited about is those CPUs are running Ryzen 5000 CPU cores. The same thing that these CPUs have in them, those APUs are going to have. Now, the downside to this whole thing is it's going to run Vega graphics. Vega graphics are very outdated. They should be running Navi, which is what the new Ryzen 6000 series GPUs are running, but they haven't upgraded it yet. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's not ready for APU. Maybe they can't figure out how to cram it all onto that CCX. Who knows? So I'm anxious to see what it's going to bring to the table. And in fact, I'm actually going to try to get a hold of both of those CPUs and bring them here in the studio. I'd like to do a desk mini build with it, maybe like a small computer build without a GPU and see how it runs. And if you're interested in that, don't forget to subscribe down below and hit that bell notification so you'll know when that video goes live. Let's switch over to Nvidia now because I'm so disappointed with Nvidia. I don't even have words to this. I'm just going to roll right into it. Today, Nvidia released at Computex their RTX 3080 Ti and their 3070 Ti. The 3080 Ti's retail price is going to be $1,199 USD. It comes out June 3rd, which is this Thursday, and it supposedly has the same performance as an RTX 3090. Well, if you could get a hold of an RTX 3090 for $1,500, or you could get an RTX 3080 Ti for $1,200, it's kind of silly to buy the 3080 Ti in my eyes. It's half the VRAM, it's only 12 gigs of GDDR6X, and it's the same performance. So if you have the money to buy a $1,200 graphics card, you probably have the money to buy a $1,500 graphics card, if you can find one for that price. Now the 3070 Ti comes in at a much lower price range. It's supposed to be $599 USD and it comes out June 10th. It's going to be essentially the same performance as an RTX 3080 with less VRAM. Now, it does have a slight CUDA bump to it. It's a little bit more CUDA cores, and it has the GDDR6X memory like the 3080 does, not the GDDR6 that the regular 3070 has. But they're built on the same die set. It's just unlocking the entire die. So what are my recommendations for all of this? What should you be doing as a consumer? And I guess this is the whole point of the video. Sorry, I really went off on a rant today. And it really just hit me that I have to get this information to you, my viewers, to let you know I don't think you should be buying anything right now. I think with what's coming up or what's coming down the road as far as Alder Lake goes for Intel and Ryzen 6000 series and then the APU lineup for the desktop PC, there's a lot of good things coming out and a lot of changes that you might want to be a part of. DDR5, PCI 5.0, faster PCI lanes to be able to handle these new graphics cards and new storage solutions like SSDs. There's just a lot of improvements as far as computing goes, and you don't want to be on last gen platform when all this new stuff comes out. My recommendation, as I said at the beginning, is if you're already on AM4 or even 1151 for Intel, stick with what you got. AMD, you can upgrade if you have a B450 or X470 motherboard, like I said, or even if you have a B550 motherboard, you can upgrade from a 3000 series to a 5000 series processor. Or if you have a lower end, say you have a Ryzen 5000, 5600X, and you want to upgrade to a 5900X when you find one, that's an easy upgrade for you to do. And it will give you performance for years to come. You will not be outdated for a long time, believe me. And then as far as Intel goes, you can upgrade to a 9900K if you have an 11 series motherboard, an 1151 or something like that. As far as the GPU side of things goes, like I said at the beginning of the GPU portion here, if you can afford a $1,000 plus GPU, this probably isn't the video for you. In fact, this might not even be the channel for you because I like to go with more low budget stuff, if you know what I mean. If you want to check out anything that I'm working on between videos or between uploads, you can swing over to Twitter and check us out at Danny's Tech YT for an in-depth look at Danny's Tech channel and to see what I'm working on behind the scenes. But thanks for stopping by, and as I always say, I'm Danny with Danny's Tech Channel, and I'll see you in the next video.
I'm gonna make mistakes. Try not to hold me down. Feel alive when I'm in this town.